Mr. Carl's back.
I'm back.
Woo! Okay, we're talking about episode 3 now. What?
Isn't it episode?
No, it's episode 4 of this show. Episode 3 of the real show.
I was gone.
Mr. Loney, how did you feel about this episode?
Honestly, this was one of the better ones. I really enjoyed it. The whole becoming God thing was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. It was funny?
Yeah, well, it was like, they took it seriously,
yeah.
But there were some aspects of it where it was just like, alright.
It got a little silly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It definitely, the tone was definitely better than, like, Charlie X. I don't know, Charlie X was kind of a surprisingly good watch, but I still don't like it as much as many other episodes. But compared to, like, The Man Trap, it wasn't boring, you know? It all was contained on the ship for the most part until the end, kind of like Charlie X, but...
I'm wearing the wrong shirt.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. This, the first thing that really strikes you about the episode is that they're wearing the original pilot clothes.
Yep.
But which is the weirdest thing, because, like, you watch the first 2 episodes and they have the newer ones, and then you watch this one and they have the older ones, because this is the original second pilot that got them the show and got to make the whole thing. So we get an appearance, probably the last appearance of the old phaser later on in the episode.
And the original Doctor.
That's not the original guy, he's just some other guy.
Oh. They get a distress signal, and then they find basically the black box of another ship. And they beam it onto the ship, and they're like, it's doing a thing.
Mitchell? That's his name, right?
Gary Mitchell.
Gary Mitchell. Kirk's best friend.
An episode.
Yeah. He jumps in the elevator with Kirk and Spock, and he's like, how's that chess game going? And he's like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, ha, ha, ha. You know, a little bit of a...
Some friendly banter.
Yeah, a little bit of dialogue to establish what he is, and he's like a helmsman, and he goes and relieves the next guy. They are approaching the, like, force field beyond the known universe.
It's like a space wall.
Yeah. Mitchell, like, turns around to the yeoman and, like, grabs her hand.
Sexually harasses her.
Well, like, and then she, like, her reaction isn't even like she's scared. She's just like, oh, I guess I'm holding your hand now. It's like, what was the intention there at all?
I think it was like we need something for him to do, and this is the only thing we found.
He likes the ladies, guys. Is that, yeah, that's when the electrical shock happens, or just...
Yep, and like some of the systems in the bridge and other parts of the ship were starting to blow up.
Yeah, consoles start exploding and fire everywhere, and then everyone's falling down in classic Star Trek style.
And then the Doctor and Gary both get electrocuted?
Or something. Well, Gary gets like flung out of his chair, and Spock's like, oh god, and he has to go take control of the helm. And the Doctor kind of... She doesn't fall as aggressively as Gary.
She,
maiden
falls.
Yeah, like a faint kind of thing. Oh, and then, so after they kind of recover, Kirk goes to check on Gary, and he lifts him over or whatever, and they reveal his eyes, and they do a zoom in and then freeze frame on his eyes, and it's like, and then it cuts to commercial.
And then fades to black.
Yeah. It's very of its time. Kirk and Spock are they suspect that the ESP or high levels of ESP are becoming dangerous, specifically because of where they're at.
And the whole point is, like, as they're realizing this at the same time, they're figuring out that the original ship that brought them there in the first place was destroyed because of this.
Yeah. And Spock receives, or he while he's encoding or listening to that thing, he says that the captain ordered the destruction of his own ship, and they're all really confused about that, obviously, because why would a captain order the destruction of his own ship? And that's when they kind of show that the captain was looking for, or was identifying people on his ship who have high levels of ESP. So they look in and they discover that both Gary and the Doctor are like the highest on the ship right now. So it immediately makes them like, oh, they're the bad guys. We gotta be wary.
Lock them in the brig.
Yeah. So Kirk goes into the infirmary and talks to Gary, And Gary's all like, oh, actually, it's done me some good. Aside from the eyes, because like the prosthetic they use for the eyes, he obviously can't see, so he's like looking around like this, like he's really trying, but he can't see anything. They give more exposition of Kirk and Gary's past. On one mission, Gary took a bullet for Spock, or
it was a poison dart.
A poison dart, whatever. Saved his life, but obviously Gary survived it and all that. So Gary's like, "You better be nice to me," and he's like, "Okay. I'm gonna leave you here in the infirmary, okay?"
Oh, and he's also like, remember that one blonde chick from the academy?
Oh, yeah.
I set her up. And then Kirk's like, I almost married her.
Yeah. He's like, what else could I do? Or something like that. I'm getting better ideas or something. When the doctor goes to visit him again, he's like discovering he has the Force and stuff, and he can like move a cup to his hand. His friend Lee comes in, that was the other helmsman. And Lee's like, oh yeah, well, we're trying to fix the thing, and we don't really know what's wrong with it. And he's like, well, you should do this really specific thing that I shouldn't know how to... That's the problem. And he's like, he kind of laughs it off, and he's like, I'm not joking, Lee! He like, that line is great. He's not being taken seriously. Because he was just injured by a lightning bolt.
That line reminded me of the Iron Giant. Where's the robot man, Z?
To test Gary's ESP, she turns around like, because he was like going through the computer, and he's like, I read through half the computer in like an hour. And she's like, oh, let me test this. So she takes like a random one, puts it in, and reads off like, or no, she says the page, and he reads off this whole poem. And then she turns around and he stops and he goes, interesting you chose that one. That's one of the most passionate love sonnets in the last 20th century or whatever, since 1996. So that kind of begins grows their romantic involvement with each other.
I was on my coffee break. I thought I'd check up on...
Yeah!
And then it cuts to everybody on like a conference table, and Lee's going over like, oh, this is exactly what happens, and you described it the exact same way that it is.
Crazy, right? And Kirk's like,
something's going on.
And this is kind of when Spock is like, this whole episode, Spock's like, that is not Gary Michael, or whatever, that is not Gary Mitchell. He is becoming a mutant, or he says,
Mr. Mitchell.
Our subject is not Gary Mitchell. Our concern is rather what he is mutating into.
The doctor kind of freaks out and is like, don't you see it could be like a wave of evolution of humanity or something?
Kirk's just like, shut up, woman.
No. Does he react like that?
Well, he's like, Doctor,
oh, yeah.
My job is to keep the people on my ship safe. And if Spock needs to talk to do that, then I'm gonna listen to him.
Okay, yeah, he does kind of do that.
It is my duty, whether pleasant or unpleasant, to listen to the reports, observations, even speculations on any subject that might affect the safety of this vessel.
Yeah, because he needs to hear the non-bias as well. But it is kind of that's the struggle here. Is he able to save his friend, or is the only option to kill this guy he's known forever? Are humans with ESP a natural progression in evolution? Like, that humanity is becoming or developing these new abilities, but obviously Gary takes it to an extreme, goes all Magneto.
After the conference, Kirk, Spock, and the Doctor go to talk to Gary, and Gary's just like, I know why you guys are here. And Kirk's like, what, can you read my mind or something? And he goes, you're worried about your ship, but Spock wants me dead.
And Spock's like, that's not what I'm thinking.
He's like, well, maybe you did catch me, but...
Yeah, so he's being able to read everybody's minds and stuff.
Why don't you kill me then?
Mr. Spock is right, and you're a fool if you can't see it.
Lee is in charge of getting the engines back online, and Spock is just like, can we put a self-destruct switch at this control panel? And Lee's like, you mean this one that I can put right here, conveniently? And Kirk's like, I don't like this, man.
Fission Chamber 3 checks out. Station seems to be running fine.
You're a talented thief, Kelso. Everything you sent up seems to be fitting in place.
I'm kind of proud of the job we've done. Are we going to be ready to transform up?
Oh, we're doing a great job. Everything fits.
Everything's going great, and then he gets strangled.
Yeah, because Gary wakes up and he uses the Force to make a wire choke him out.
One of my favorite scenes from that whole, like, section of the episode is when Scotty's like, whoa, Kirk, did you guys get the blaster rifle thing that we sent down? And Kirk's like, what rifle? As Spock walks into this big-ass gun.
Yeah, that's great. That gun looks so weird. It looks like a Lego.
It really does. And it's, like, so awkward to hold, too.
Yeah,
like,
it's like... Yeah, it doesn't have, like, two handles, and then he holds it sideways, or something like that. It looks like a drill.
After he gets strangled, or Lee gets strangled, Gary gets, like, out of the force field and zaps Kirk and Spock, and they get knocked out, and then the doctor, we find out, has the same eyes.
During that scene, she does it, and then just by the end, she does, just because he got out, or was it his power?
Like, he walks her into the cell, and they look in the mirror, and her eyes just
Yeah, they
gloss
turn
over.
around and like... Yeah, after that, they kind of make this planet like, oh, we can just literally do whatever we want. We're on creative mode. And they, like, make, like, fresh water and fruit and, like, basically Eden.
Then it cuts back to Kirk and Spock laying there as Not McCoy walks in, and he wakes up Kirk, and he's like, oh, they went this way. You gotta go stop them, or we gotta get out of here. And as he's getting ready to wake up Spock, Kirk's like, no. Let me leave first before you wake him up, because I don't want to hear this. Or Gary tells her to go talk to him.
Okay.
And then she goes and finds him, because her powers aren't as strong yet.
Yeah. She's like, oh, it just took a little bit longer for me to get the eyes. And he keeps trying to, like, sway her, like, there's still humanity in you.
You're a psychologist, you should know better. Humans aren't meant to be God.
What does she do? She zaps
She
him?
zaps Gary, and then Gary zaps her, and then she zaps Gary, and it goes back and forth like 3 or 4 times. And then it's basically just her draining his power.
Oh, okay.
And then he goes back to human form, and then Kirk beats the absolute crap out of him. He's just like, bah! Bah! And then somehow he, like, rips his shirt by, like, falling over a pile of dirt.
It happens. It will happen more and more as the series goes on. It's like when Spider-Man loses his mask. It's like that kind of motif. Like, look at how serious this fight's getting. Is there more that happens before Kirk takes out the gun and blasts the big rock?
Not really. Like, it's just them fighting back and forth.
He gets, like, the bloody marks on his face, and then Gary's, like, standing on top of the rocks, conveniently above the grave that he left there for Kirk, and he shoots the giant rock behind him, and it just... He falls into the thing, or he falls into it first, doesn't he? And then the rock covers him.
Yep.
So he was just buried alive. And he's like, well, he's dead.
Then Elizabeth is laying there and is like, good job.
I'm dead.
So Kirk calls up the Enterprise and he's like, I'm done. I need to go home. And then that's the episode, like...
No, they have like one more scene back on the ship.
Do they?
Yeah, so it cuts back, and Kirk is like looking at his broken wrist or whatever, because that's the only damage he got.
I felt for him too.
I believe there's some hope for you after all, Mr. Spock.
The little bit of humanity in Spock. Just a little bit. About half.
I'd say it's about 50-50.
Yeah. And then that's the episode.
It's a pretty straightforward episode that just...
Yeah, like, I've noticed that, like, this one, there's some really large similarities between this one, the original pilot, and then The Man Trap, which was episode 1. Which might just be because they're all pilots, technically, but, because, like, I don't know, there's similar themes that are done in different ways, where, like, Kirk isn't trapped this time, they trapped Gary in the prison. An enemy aboard the ship, and you don't, I mean, in this one you do know who it is, but you don't know, like, why or exactly what. And the other one is, you know why, but you don't know who. there wasn't, unlike the last couple episodes where Kirk has had some really great one-liners, there's nothing really memorable that he says.
Not really.
I mean, it might just be because they were trying to establish his character, so they're just... Other than at the beginning when he does the chest thing, that kind of shows his, like...
His quirky side.
Yeah. And, like, the ending is just him against the bad guy, so it's kind of like... I don't know, really giving him his own... Because, like, in the original pilot, it's mostly Pike against the antagonists and stuff. That the ship crew is always like the B plot. All in all, I recommend this episode. It's pretty good.
I also do as well. Out of 10, I'd have to give it like an 8. It's pretty good.
I don't know if I go as high as an 8, but I would recommend it. I did like it.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Oh man, did you see that? Is that the next video?
Whoa, there's one right there too.
Oh, nice.